ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुरेव परं ब्रह्मा तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। तपोभिक्षीणपापानां शान्तानां वीतरागिणां मुमुक्षूणामपेक्षोऽयम् आत्मबोधो विधीयते। Page 48. vapustuṣādibhiḥ kośairyuktaṃ yuktyā'vaghātataḥ ātmānamantaraṃ śuddhaṃ vivicyāttaṇḍulaṃ yathā vapuhu kośairyuktaṃ tuṣādibhiḥ vivicyāttaṇḍulaṃ yathā. The example that is taken is of the paddy. In the earlier days, there was no specificity. When I say earlier days, at least about 40 years ago, there was no specificity of specific rice sold. Tandulam means rice, which was single polish, no polish, brown rice. The actual color of rice is light brown. Many in this generation, the moment I say that the actual color of rice is light brown, not as dark brown as wheat, but at least brown, they say, no, we have seen it only as white. That is because so much of the barn has been polished and removed that it is a pure packet of carbohydrates without any fiber in it. But then in the earlier days, as many people, that would be for lunch or dinner, the paddy was scooped out of the store, brought into the mortar and pestle, and then beaten up, pounded, and that was also an art. You don't have to put lot of pressure in it. You just have to lift that there was a stick, a fat, long stick. So it would be lifted up and then let the gravity work. You don't have to beat it. You just have to let the gravity work. Just with the weight of that long round stick, the pounding would begin, And what I have heard is usually the mothers or grandmothers would be parallelly singing some Ramanama, Krishna Nama, some Tattvik, the folklore songs. And how long will they pound? That also comes by experience. Pound it too long, instead of being rice, it would become rava. Biyap rava. The pounding continues until the husk is separated from the paddy. The rice is separated. And then they take the winnowing, which we say chata, and toss it up into the air. I mean, not sprinkling it all over, that was also quite a rhythmic. So they would toss it in the air, and then that too in the open. So the gentle breeze, the husk being lighter than the rice, the husk would fall away. A few rounds of it, the rice is separated from the husk, and then the rice is taken for cooking. Probably more of an experience for a city-grown mindset would be that the already packaged rice, you have to now separate the stones and small pebbles from the rice. This is a different case of vivicyāttaṇḍulaṃ. There is a different technique applied. Anyway, you have to wash. So you throw that rice, whatever quantity required, into a container and then put water in it. Instead of hand picking each rock or the sand particle, which whether it is the cleaning process not done properly or the market where it was sold, they have added it for the extra weight, whatever be the reasons. So you soak it in that water and then tilt that container a little bit, and from the top you start shaking it and picking the rice. As you shake, what happens to the sediment? The heavier sediment, which is the rock, sand and pebbles, they go down and the rest of the rice comes out. Sometimes there are these small particles of soil, usually clay, that also completely gets dissolved, and all that you get is either that or this. But here specifically, the age-old technique that you get the paddy and then pound the husk away. So here it says, vapustuṣādibhiḥ yuktyā'vaghātataḥ. And that has to be done with a little bit of experience and intelligence. You cannot just blindly keep beating it up. It has to be optimal force. There is force, and yet there is that gentleness that only the husk bakes away and the rice remains as is. Vivicyāttaṇḍulaṃ yathā. Tuṣādibhiḥ, the husk is removed. That is the main criteria. Similarly, kośairyuktaṃ yuktyā'vaghātataḥ. Avaghātataḥ, with the force required to be consistent in trying to separate the koshaha. Koshaha, pancha koshaha. There are 5 koshas: annamaya, pranamaya, manomaya, vijnanamaya, and anandamaya. So these koshas have to be separated. And then what gets revealed? The already existing ātmānamantaraṃ śuddhaṃ. What gets revealed is that Atma Chaitanya Tattva, which is already present and ever existing. So the Shravana Manana Nididhyasana is the process of vivicyāttaṇḍulaṃ, vivecana. Yuktyā'vaghātataḥ. There has to be the logical method of approach. It cannot be some random mistake or some magical thing that suddenly happens and you get touched by. There are people, Swamiji, put your hand on my head, so that the energy flows and my sadhana becomes sharpened. I said, if that were true, I would put both my hands, both my legs on my own head. Plus, historically we know that somebody who put their hand on the head and something was destroyed was only Bhasmasura. And I am no Bhasmasura. It is not that kind of a mysterious, magical, mystical thing to happen by an external influence other than Shravana Manana Nididhyasana. Through that Shravana Manana Nididhyasana, the pounding has to begin. That one has to bring oneself to that environment of satsanga where Shravana can happen, and then you start pounding through the process of manana. It is like a feedback loop. You do that manana, go into the field of action, test it out. How far have I been successful in my revision of my vision? Have I revised it? Have I turned it around? Has the U-turn happened? Because as long as that U-turn doesn't happen, the sadhana has not begun. See, the other name of Varanasi because Varuna and Asi, 2 tributaries that come and join Gangaji, and thereby that place is also known as Varanasi. The other name, the ancient name, is Kashi. There is one more which is very close to our hearts in Chinmaya Mission, is further north up, it is called Uttara Kashi. See, wherever these places are named as Kashi, Uttara Kashi, Gupta Kashi, these names, Kashi, is where Gangaji is somehow turning back towards its source. Wherever Gangaji has turned towards its source, they say it is a very powerful place for sadhana of a seeker. Why? That place is named as Kashi. The root word is Kasha. Kasha, illuminance. that which is of the nature of illumining. Prakasha, the root word again, kasha. That which profusely removes darkness just by the mere presence, illumining everything along with itself. That is the nature of kasha. You are not trying to create the Atma Chaitanya. You are not trying to manufacture it. Hence, it is not a result of a certain action. Result of an action morphs certain things to create something new which was not there. When you add yogurt or curd culture to the milk and let it rest in a warm place through the night, by next day it transforms into a solid curd. Lactic acid changes into lactobacillus. Bacteria develops and then it solidifies into curd. It curdles. There is a process of transformation. So it is not that the sadhana means that I have to add something to transform, to create, generate, produce Atma Chaitanya. Atma Chaitanya is always existing, has always been present. This Atma Chaitanya, which is always present, is covered by the 5 layers. When we say that it is antaram, it is not to be again misunderstood. Sometimes when we see the diagrams, it feels as though that there is first the Annamaya, then inside is the Manomaya, then inside is the Vijnanamaya, then inside is the Anandamaya, and deep inside is this Atma Chaitanya. When we go through self-unfoldment, that is the first picture that we come across by the end of the book, and that is the understanding that we grow up with. But that's not something that which should be the ultimate. That is just a pictorial depiction so that we can grasp the concept. And what is the grasp of the concept? The grasp of the concept is Atma Chaitanya is all pervasive. Though it is all pervasive, it is subtler than, way subtler than all that which it is pervading. That is what it indicates. Therefore, he says antaram. That which it is permeating, permeating through and through. And yet being subtle, therefore it is the very core of our being. The very existential principle because of which all the other layers borrow that existence to seemingly feel like they exist. If the entire prapancha, the entire jagat, is nothing but a projected reality, how can that which is a part of this projected reality called the Sharira Mana Buddhi or the Panchakoshas be real other than it being a projected reality? The substratum on which all of this is projected, this Atma Chaitanya is ever existent. There was never a time or space where it existed not. That which has been projected upon it has come and gone. It continues to persist. In the earlier examples that Adi Shankaracharya ji has illustrated, we have seen that the waves come and go. The oceans also change their shapes. Sometimes it cuts deep. After the tsunami, it feels like it has receded. So the shape has changed. Specifically after the last tsunami, they said 4 more structures in Mahabalipuram have been revealed. There are these small temple structures, very articulately carved. And this articulately carved temples, we thought there were only so many. Now after the tsunami, 4 more structures have revealed, meaning the ocean seemed to have receded. The ocean structures may change, but its essential nature has not changed, which is H2O, water alone. So the waves come, waves go. When the waves go, the waves come, it is a splashing celebration. When the waves go, then also it is a splashing celebration. Imagine if we make a big deal out of every wave coming up. Happy birthday to you. Before you finish the song, the wave has already done with its cycle. And when it goes back, the same wave never comes back again. Done. There are millions, countless number of waves. They keep coming, whatever form or structure. It's only temporary. Similarly, all these forms are nothing but temporary seeming presence which is borrowed from that Atma Chaitanya, whose very nature is of existence, and that seeming existence is borrowed from that Atma Chaitanya, which has always been my true nature. Not being aware of it, it's as simple as you are rushing to the satsang, you have to start immediately, and you are searching for your glasses, without which there is no spashta vision. Clarity is not there. And then your grandkid, just woken up, looks at you and says, "What are you searching?" "My glasses, beta." Then he says, "Can you see everything clearly?" "Yeah, of course." "How are you able to see?" I said, "Oh, they are right here." You have not created it. You have just cognized the fact that it has been there, because of which you are able to search. This very pursuit of this satsanga, manana, shravana, manana, nidhyasana that is happening because of that Atma Chaitanya. All the layers are functional. Whether it is Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya and the Anandamaya, they are functional because of the presence of that Chaitanya Tattva. Therefore, in Kenopanishad, when the student asks the master, "Kene shitam patate preshitam manaha, kena prana prathama praiti yuktaha. There seems to be something because of which my organs of perception action, my mind and the antakarana seems to be functional. But I am not able to ascertain what it is. So what does the Rishi there speak? He says, Chakshushaschakshuhu. It is the eye of the eye, that which provides the eye to be functional in that particular field. Manaso manoyat, it is the mind of the mind. Knowing this, atimucya dhiraha, they transcend the limitation of identity. Now, how does this sequence work? What is the why is this that we are so heavily embroiled in this identity? Where does this all occur? So he says in the next shloka, sadā sarvagato'pyātmā na sarvatrāvabhāsate buddhāvevāvabhāseta svaccheṣu pratibimbavat. A very, very unique, subtle concept given. A very, very unique, subtle insight that is being given. Sadā sarvagato'pyātmā. This Atma Chaitanya is sarvagataḥ. Sarvagataḥ, it is all pervasive. Strange that there is no gati, therefore this Atma Chaitanya is called sarvagataḥ. For you to be here, you had to move from wherever your home was up until here. Though I stay here, still I had to move from there to here. There is a movement, gati. And all that our mind realizes is with respect to the movement. Therefore, all pervasiveness, ever existing, is being indicated through gati. Sarvagataḥ, that which is all pervasive. Sarvagataḥ api atma, though it is all pervasive, na sarvatrāvabhāsate. It does not shine forth in all places. In fact, we see everything because the light bounces off of it. Therefore, we see that vastu. In complete darkness, in our own house that which we are living in, the chair or the center table is recognized by the pure technology called shin bashing. మోకాలు తగిలితే కానీ అక్కడ ఉన్నట్టు అర్థం అవ్వదు. Why were you not able to perceive it? There is no light to bounce off of it. Light is bouncing, but it is not reflecting enough. Now when you put yourself on an angle to the floor, it has been polished. So you see a very vague reflection. But you cannot, it is not that reflective a surface wherein you see your own reflection in it. If there is a bright light, you will see it reflect a little bit. There are these metal surfaces. In those metal surfaces, you see light, shine, and reflect a little bit. You tilt it a little bit, you may be able to see a contour of you, a hazy contour. But where is the clear picture reflecting? In the mirror. Only in that mirror surface is the clarity of reflection. Similarly, Buddha in the buddhi eva avabhāseta. Only the buddhi surface is such a subtle surface in which this Atma Chaitanya reflects. Therefore, buddhi has to be brought to that sanctity of Shanti inside. An agitated buddhi cannot show the proper reflection. All the methods that which we are given. What does the puja do? Whoever is your Ishtadevata. The principle is that antakarana which is constantly running out in multiple various themes as though simultaneously. That is how it is usually habituated. Through that multivarious things as props, our mind is brought to one focal theme of that Ishtadevata. Sthula sadhana. But with the sthula antakarana, only sthula sadhana will work. So, one theme focal point is practiced. To that mind which has now come through variety of things. There was once, for about a year or two, there was a Japanese guy that would come and attend my satsang. So after several months of coming, there was some puja. I think it was Sri Ramanavami. And when we do, along with puja, a speciality called Kalyana. The material required suddenly hikes up. So anywhere that you see on the stage, there is material. So when I used to sit, the first thing that I would do, at least go half an hour before time, because the volunteers will bring all the material listed. If they are not sequentially arranged, during that entire process, I will be spending more time searching for them. So I was seriously organizing things for each step. There is a map in my head that, this is the first step. You need Deepa Prajwalana. For that I need this. So that group together is in one plate. So each step. So that Japanese guy was like amused. Your devotion requires lot of utensils. This was his bottom line. Which was a factual statement. For the sthula buddhi, sthula upachara is given, but what is the central theme there? That the mind through all these materials is brought to one focal point of that Ishtadevata. Then the next step, that mind graduates, that antakarana is graduating when there is a mantra given. It becomes subtle. From the sthula sadhana, we are moving towards the subtler aspect. Wherein, in the earlier sadhana, we entertained many thoughts of various things coming to one point. In japa, what happens? There are not that many things. There are not that many utensils. There is one disciplined thought which is entertained repetitively. And many people in the initial stages complain, very boring Swamiji. This japa is a very boring thing. What did you think japa is going to be some entertainment? नाच गाना होगा? If you find that boring, go back to step 1. Start with puja. Because here the subtlety is that the mind has to be gathered to focus on one disciplined thought and repeat it as many times, specifically 108 times and multiples of 108 times. See, once we get a mantra, usually we are said, do it one round of 108 times. Because the siddhanta is, once you increase it as a sadhana, say you have started doing 2 times, 4 times, 8 times, as you increase it, you are told you cannot revert back and say, I will do now 1 only. From there on, the intensity has to increase. So the advice given is, as your mind sharpens, to stay focused on that one mantra repetitively, doing it for 108 times, and you start reveling in that quietude, that the mind is not running hither and thither. Then shift the gears. Increase it. One thought has to be retained and repeated. When the message is given to the next level, where the Guru gives the message Tattvamasi and it is explained that your Anubhava should be Aham Brahmasmi, these Mahavakyas are not Japa mantras. Aham Brahmasmi, Aham Brahmasmi, Aham Brahmasmi. No, this is not for that repetition. I'll give you a silly example to grasp this. Even in the middle of the night when you are snoring away to glory, I suddenly wake you up and ask you, are you man or a woman? Do you hesitate? I mean, you may get irritated by me waking you up. But do you hesitate? Wait a second. Do you have to think? Do you do sadhana? aham purushaha, purushoham, kevala purushaha, natu stri, natu stri, natu stri. Do you do any sadhana? Don't shock me by saying yes. We don't do any such funny sadhanas. But what is the experience through and through? That whatever I am doing, the identity continues. I being this man, I being this woman, I am doing this. So it is a limited wisdom. But the identity is pretty solid. For the recent past few years, I could not give this example in America. Pata nahi aajkal they call them fluid. Sometimes this, sometimes that, sometimes I don't know. I mean, if you look at it Vedantically, they are closer to the truth. But in factual reality, they are more confused. This whole wokism messes you up. You never do sadhana, but the intensity throughout every thought, word, action, because of that identity is so strong, there is no confusion. Wherever there is a movement, the abhyasa of my identity is extended effortlessly. If you understand this example, through the manana, we need to reach to that state of self-identification that wherever I am functioning from the platform of being Chaitanya Tattva. That is called Aham Brahmasmi, wherein there is no thought repetition there. What was the first step? Through the puja, there are multiple utensils and through which you come to a focal point. Even in that there is a lot of tripti, there is a lot of shanti. The moment you do it with that kind of a intensity where your mind now focus only on that Ishta Devata, then the subtlety increases through the japa, wherein there is not that many material or themes, but there is only one thought repeated, and in that thought repetition, your intention, the bottom line there is one thought without any other disturbance. That is called concentration or focus. Then comes the subtlest, wherein it is one thought, non-repeated, retained. Aham Brahmasmi. It is not as simple as I have just put it in words. Am I getting across? Now to that subtlety, if my buddhi has to reach, all these sadhanas is to quieten that antakarana. Now pay attention. When we reach to the subtlest, where the buddhi is cognizing the fact that this which is illumining is but merely a reflection. The buddhi cognizes the fact that all this is being perceived and processed in the light of this reflection. And when it turns its attention to the source, zapped with that brilliance, it pauses. That is called Atmadarshan. The attention is shifted from the reflection to the source. So far, it was on the reflected. We have slowly graduated to come to that subtle point where I now see the reflected consciousness. And when I realize, when I come to cognize that this is merely a reflection. If there is a reflection, there has to be a source. Earlier days, we did not have cell phones, we did not even have phones. In the entire apartment complex, one house had a phone, one house had a TV, one house had a fridge, and it was universal for everybody in that apartment. They would come into the balcony and shout out that name and say, "Tumhara phone aaya hai." Only in emergencies, not a nuisance, only in emergencies. So we as kids, if we had to call the attention of the other fellow without calling the attention of their parents so that we could sneak out into the playground and do our masti, we had to communicate some method. We tried throwing pebbles at the window. It didn't serve well. Because sometimes in a wrong angle, even a small pebble had a devastating effect. Then for next 2 weeks, nowhere to be seen. Then we also graduated and carried a small piece of mirror. Reflect that light into the room intended. SOS. Looking at that fellow will come and peek through the window. He saw the reflection. The moment he saw the reflection, he said, "Oh, the reflection is a sign that there is a source." His attention was drawn to the source. Then he had this moment of realization. I have to be liberated from this limitation called home, so that I can go out and have my enjoyment, play. Similarly, the buddhi, when it sees on its own surface that because of which all these processing and movements are being cognized is because of this reflection, reflecting on this surface. It says, where is the source? All of Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi's dialogue doesn't start anywhere in the earlier steps of sadhana. It starts from here. He used to say, Ni Ya. Who are you? From where? What perspective? What platform? From this platform of the buddhi, which has now become so quiet that you can clearly see the reflection. And the attention is turned towards the source. And this can happen only at the buddhisthai. Mana is little too dull for that reflection to happen. Organs of perception action are way too dull. buddhāvevāvabhāseta. It's only in that buddhi. Another tangent concept, but connected here, so I am mentioning it. Wherever we find we divide the world into Jada and Chaitanya. Through the entire Guru Stotram, the attention is, that also is so beautiful. They say the division is between that which is mobile and that which is immobile. Wherever in this Jagat we find that mobility, whether it is in the Pashu, Pakshi, the trees, there is that mobility, there is that movement, there is that growth, decay, that movement happens. There has to be this buddhi for it to reflect that this Chaitanya pervades through that, as though pervades through that Sharira, to have that mobility. The spark of life has to enliven. Therefore, in our way of life, in the Vaidika Sanatana Dharma Hindu way, everything is worship worthy. Because it is the Chaitanya that is being recognized. But what about that which is inanimate? Sat Swarupa is being invoked. It is even more subtle to understand. Therefore, it is worship worthy. Unlike in the other Abrahamic, the difference being in their theology that first of all there are limited number of jivas. It's very numbered. There are only that many jivas. And of course, they believe in one time opportunity. You live only once. And then they say that the rest of the creation has life but not soul. Only the human have soul. Therefore, when we translate the word jiva as a soul, is not the appropriate translation, nowhere close to jivatva. Therefore, the rest of the creation can be used, abused, killed. Why? It has only life but not soul. But ours, we say that wherever this buddhi exists, this conscious principle which is all pervasive reflects, and that Sharira Mana Buddhi starts functioning in its own capacity of its jadatva. Therefore, they say you can communicate to the trees. When you water your garden, you talk to your trees and look at the response of it. How beautifully the garden will start flowering and fruiting. Instead of just a dull chore that you just throw the water there and be done. Sit down and talk to each one of them, and they will respond. Because there is that reflection happening even there. Even in the Jantu Prapancha, if you have had a cat or dog or any pet, the best response do I see it in the cows. The kind of playfulness or the kind of love and kind of attention that they give. Even in that Pashu Loka, the same principle happens. But the buddhi is not sharp enough like the Manava Janma. Therefore, Adi Shankaracharya ji says, Jantunam nara janma durlabhamataha pumstvam tato viprata tasmat vaidika dharma marga parata vidvatvam asmat param. Amongst all the jantus, human beings have this specificity that their buddhi can reach to that sharpness wherein they can cognize the difference between the reflection and cognize the source to be. When we say dhyana, what is dhyana? To weed out all these layers, come to this point of quietude and turn that buddhi's attention to the source and stop in that quietude. But it is a practice, it is an abhyasa, because the buddhi has known only agitated and sleep mode. There was a third mode which we have never engaged. See, sometimes when you use a car and you have been using it for 4 or 5 years, and somebody who has had an expertise in that kind of cars comes and just sitting next to you, you are driving and then pushes one button and you suddenly see something happening and say, oh, this can also happen. That mode was never recognized or engaged with. That has to be practiced. The buddhi has to be initiated into it. But the process is come to various things to one focal point. From there graduate to one thought retention, which is japa. From there graduate to one thought repetition. Here there is one thought retention, aham asmi. And in that, to recognize that from the reflection there has to be a source, and that source is me. Aham asmi. The very first opening of the... What was the next book that I asked you to order? Advaitamakaranda. That book. Suddenly I forgot that book's name. The very opening statement there, he says, Aham asmi sadā bhāmi kadāchinnāham apriyaha. How can you miss this? This is so evident. You don't even need logic to be experiencing what you already are. Aham asmi, I am. But we corrupt it by adding immediately, I am so and so. So and so is samsara. Drop that, you become asamsari. I mean, his approach is pretty straightforward and a very hard approach. He doesn't cajole with so much of explanation and logic. कि दिख नहीं रहा है, सीधी सी तो बात है. And that can happen only in the Shanta Antakarana, because that is where reflection happens. We will continue tomorrow. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramayaः, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet, Asato Ma Satgamaya, Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityor Ma Amritangamaya. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate, Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Sishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.